This week, we're going to ask the question, is modern therapy helpful for men? Are myths and archetypes useful from a red pill perspective? How are we going to fix a modern gender war and collapsing birth rates? Relax, Becky. We're not going to chain you to the kitchen sink, okay? Keep in mind, though, if men collectively decided to do that tomorrow, there'd be nothing to stop us from doing that. Because women depend on men for the enforcement of law and order. They have to appeal to men for their rights. But for now, we'll continue just to let you LARP as equals. Apparently. My take on modern therapy is that it's absolute dog water. Each year, the statistics for mental health get progressively worse. Check out this self-deletion chart from the CDC. Obviously, the current model is not working, just like the modern medical machine. Napoleon once famously said, "Doctors will have more lives to answer for in the next life than all the generals combined." Corporate greed has turned anything and everything into a commodity. Quarterly profits have become the modern-day golden calf. Perhaps the reason why people are depressed has less to do with your parents not buying you that pony and more to do with working 50 to 60 hours a week just to break even.
I'm tired, boss.
Peasants enjoyed more freedom than we currently do in modern times. Our food is engineered poison, geared for production rather than quality. And corporate interests have turned half the population against the other population that actually supports them, biting the hand that feeds them. And modern medicine is cut, burn, or poison. And we see how screwed up society has become when we stepped away from the founding documents, designed to be an anchor from floating further off into tyranny. Every day we see more and more erosion of the republic, as we pander to the feminine need for safety over all else. And the sibling society has reached a fever dream that even the boomers could never predict. They sold our birthright for a whiff of the biscuit. Well, that was cathartic. I feel much better. But what's the solution? Before we had the written word, long ago we had the oral tradition. Not that tradition, bucko.
That's nasty.
A golden thread that wove through the fabric of time. Stories that rhymed throughout generations, locations, cultures, and traditions, spanning throughout the creation. Tales that would give everybody pause and warning, committed to memory and passed down from father to father. The ancient Hebrew tribes would pass down the staff from the father to the son who is the most responsible, handing over the headship to the most responsible son. Things were more vertical then. Now this thread has been severed and everything is much more linear. We now live in Flatlandia. Do you smell what I'm stepping in? Peer groups only talk to other peer groups, and it seems like we've lost the wisdom class. They're off in nursing homes, playing golf, or getting their grooves back. Hell, people don't even debate anymore.
Go away, Baton!
Now they just burn down your Tesla.
Sibling society.
If fathers and grandpas put as much effort into their sons as they did their backswing, we would fix the sibling society overnight. Though on this channel, I often rail against therapy, I want to say that I 100% believe in the Jungian model. This can be another real sticky point for a lot of Christians. So mellow out, man.
You have pled guilty to the practice of witchcraft.
They hear the word archetypes and immediately think you'd be practicing witchcraft. Once again, I think we're just talking past each other. So let's clean that up. They call it the Force in Star Wars. Christians call it the Spirit. The crystal-worshipping New Agers call it universal consciousness.
Hey, mellow out, man!
And Jungians call it the collective unconscious. A rose by any other name would smell just as sweet. What I'm trying to say is that we're all talking about the same thing. We're just using different words to describe it. This happens all the time. And I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Robert Moore and his book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. He's another Jungian analyst. I've linked his book below. This book is very beneficial. Even though Robert Moore often would talk negatively about patriarchy, I don't think a lot of boomers really understood the benevolence of patriarchy. His story has a real tragic end also, and it turns out that he trusted women a little bit too much. But this is an incredible book when it comes to individuation. The red pill would call individuation mental point of origin. Modern therapy demonizes Jung. I believe because his model was not profitable. If you cure everyone, turns out you run out of work. He also also shined a bright light on the sibling society. There's much more money in lifelong prescriptions and endless sessions where you continually just look for and draw up more and more reasons to be a victim. On this note, I often hear this doomer mentality from these black pillars.
I didn't ask to be born.
Guess what, bub? 300 million of your competitors in that swimming competition on your way to the uterus would argue against that. If you didn't want to be here, why the hell did you swim so hard, bro? Jung also understood complementarianism. He often taught men how to individuate themselves from their animus projections. More on that later. Modern therapists basically all believe in blank slate equalism, and nature abhors a vacuum. So to claim that a relationship is equal is really naive of the necessity of leadership. What happens in a split decision? Democracy with two people doesn't work. Brefalt's law states that women must gain something from a relationship in order to be in a relationship. The Pareto principle states that 80% of outcomes comes from 20% of causes. Trust the science, bro. When a woman says she wants an equal partner, it's just plausible deniability for control. She knows that she can say the nice thing, but covertly lead the relationship.
Abdication.
Boomers really dropped the ball on this because they just fell right for it. They were too fat and happy. They had ample warning throughout cultures and history, and they just chose to ignore it. Men gave women the right to vote, and they essentially voted themselves out of existence.
It's an easy definition for what a woman is.
Girls have a vagina.
As long as she's identifying as a woman.
A woman is anyone who identifies themselves as a woman.
A woman is someone that identifies as a woman.
It's who you identify as.
If you identify as a woman and you feel that like in your soul and in your mind you're a woman, that makes you a woman.
I don't even know what that means.
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative. Gets the people going.
Someone who has decided that they feel like a woman.
The complete ability to be fully who I am in whatever space I want to be in.
Being a woman means having the choice to choose what being a woman means to each woman.
How do you know that you're a man?
How do I know that I'm I guess because I got a dick.
I mean, what did boomers think was going to happen? They essentially turned men into the modern serf class. It's interesting that the 20s were considered the silent generation because they really didn't speak up.
Happy wife, happy life. Let me run that by the missus.
We definitely need to reform the voting situation so that you only get to vote if you sign up for the draft. That right should only be reserved for those willing to die for the country. No responsibility, no privilege. Women should not be allowed to vote to send men to war to die when they themselves don't have to go and die.
Archetypes.
The warrior archetype represents discipline, honor, and duty.
Not that kind of duty.
Joseph Campbell tells us a really good story about a Japanese samurai. He's essentially ordered from the king to go assassinate this guy. And he has like the worst day ever. Falls off of like a waterfall, stubs his toe. Essentially everything that could go wrong goes wrong. Like one of those really bad movies.
When they close a road, they put up big signs like this one.
When he finally catches up to the guy that he's supposed to assassinate, the criminal spits in the assassin's face. And the assassin puts a sword away because he knows that if he kills this man with anger in his heart, that would not be a righteous kill. That's the kind of discipline that a warrior in his fullness represents. Now, an inflated warrior with no lever can easily become a sadist. Each archetype has an inflated side and a deflated side, like positive and negative polarity. And interestingly, you see this throughout history. Wholeness is always represented by the number 4. North, east, south, west. The 4 rivers that flow out of the Garden of Eden. Earth, wind, fire, water. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Spring, summer, fall, winter. The Hebrew calendar had 4 quarters. Each quarter had 3 potentials. You put those together, you get the 12 tribes of Israel. Back to the inflated warrior with no lever. You see, the lever will always sneak in the back door if you don't find ways to enjoy pleasure. It's baked in. You can't hold that balloon underwater forever. So a warrior who hasn't integrated his lever will take pleasure in causing people pain.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
The deflated warrior is a masochist. He will find pleasure in being humiliated. This is a big problem we see with boomers nowadays.
Are you will be deemed unworthy?
Would you mind giving me a place
You'll
to
be
sit?
deemed unworthy of heaven. If you do this one thing, you will prove to God that you deserve it, that you desire.
They're completely content to watch the world fall apart. Not my chair, not my problem. You see them shuffling around Walmart or on their rascals cruising around in victim mentality. They suffer from Tourette's of the elbow and then they complain about their knees hurting. They always take the easy way out at the expense of their health. They like to abdicate their authority to professionals instead of doing a lick of research. 10,000 steps a day? Ugh. Ozempic? Yeah. Some bozo puts on a lab coat and we're supposed to just goose step. This guy is definitely an inflated magician. Inflation in the magician is a detached manipulator. This is the most dangerous of the archetypes. They only think if they can, they never think if they should. As a child, they were the trickster, and then they never got asked out at Sadie Hawkins. And without the integrated lever, it goes through the back door and gives them fantasies about control.
If only I could stop these people from having a good time.
The deflated side says,
I don't know what happened. I'm innocent. I did it for moral reasons.
Sibling society.
But this isn't about the most evil individual of all time. This is about boomers. Boomers have the highest divorce rate of all generations. It's no wonder we've all become a society of mental midgets. The Jungians called the sibling society. You have a generation of people who do zero self-reflection. And now we got a bunch of armchair tyrants running the country. A bunch of people stuck with the mental state of a 4-year-old for the rest of their lives. Freud called it the id. Freud conceived the id as the unconscious source of all innate needs, emotional impulses, and desires, including the sexual drive. The id acts driven by aggression. It's the dark, inaccessible part of our personality. It seems limited to analysis of dreams and neurotic symptoms, and can only be described in the terms of its contrast with the ego. It has no organization and no collective will. It only demands immediate gratification of its instincts according to the pleasure principle. Sounds like a bunch of people we have in office right now. It is oblivious to the reason and the presumptions of the ordinary conscious life. Contrary impulses exist side by side, without canceling each other. There is nothing in the id that could be compared with negation. Nothing which corresponds to the idea of time. The id knows no judgments of value, no good and evil, no morality. Instinctual cathexes seeking discharge. That, in our view, is all there is in the id. Instinctual cathexes is Freud's way of saying they seek codependence. Jung would say they would project where they're weak in their psyche onto somebody else. Like the covert feminist tradwives who say that men were born to serve. Even those that insist that they are weak are in themselves grandiose. Think of it, I mean, they think they're so great that somebody else would just pick it up.
The shadow.
Jung preferred the shadow compared to Freud's id. The shadow personifies everything that the subject refuses to acknowledge about himself. Whether consciously or unconsciously, one can individuate himself from it or form a codependent relationship with it. A lot of Christians find this stuff super scary and don't even want to talk about it. You get the milkman service every Sunday. But this is the meat. The id is the jinn to the Muslims. It's called shadim in the Hebrew. I think that Jung found a good way to bridge the gap from spiritual terms to scientific terms. But we're all pretty much talking about the same thing. And for you Christians there, how can you fight an enemy that you don't know? I understand this is not a Sunday school topic, but is faith not tested, even faith at all? You see the shadow presented in media all the time. In the anime Suzume, she individuates herself from it. If you haven't seen this film, you've got to see it. I found personally that most modern movies are trash, but it seems that anime might be the last bastion where you can find a really good story. Okay, spoilers, so be warned. Throughout the movie, she sees that she's pushing people away to protect herself from when her parents died in a tsunami. Now that's some real trauma, not like mom burnt the toast, okay? Now this genuine trauma developed a really powerful shadow. I like the way that Jung presents the shadow as opposed to the id and the New Agers. Jung understood that the shadow was an enemy. It's much better if you look at it as an adversary, not your friend. Most New Agers will just like present the id as like this cute little child who just needs you to be his daddy. But that little bastard wants you dead. It's more like Chucky. It wants you to join the chaos that represents the opposite of order. So it's best that you hold that little shit at arm's length. All he wants to do is take you over and sit in your throne. This little bastard was developed to protect you, but he doesn't know anything about the modern world. He's stuck at 4. A lot of modern time people will call this the lizard brain. Suzume realizes that this little girl is destroying her life, and she realizes she doesn't need her protection anymore. She's been found, she's okay, she's been loved. She doesn't need to act out anymore. She learns to separate herself, to individuate herself from this inner child. She learns to wind the clock. And she can rebuke her and tell her, nope, I'm in charge right now. We don't need you right now. Go back to your high chair. Annihilation also had a lot of this in the story. The effect of such, a confrontation with the shadow produces at first a dead balance, a standstill that hampers moral decisions and makes convictions ineffective. Negrido, tenebrositas, chaos, melancholia. Consequently, as Jung knew from personal experience, in this time of descent, 1, 3, 7 years, more or less, genuine courage and strength are required, with no certainty of emergence. Nevertheless, Jung remained of the opinion that while no one should deny the danger of the descent, every descent is followed by an ascent, and a simulation of, rather than possession by, the shadow becomes a possibility. Jung said that the encounter with the shadow is the apprentice piece in the individual's development. That with the anima is the masterpiece. So first you need to learn to individuate yourself from the shadow within the masculine quaternio. Once you subdued that little bastard, then you can work on the anima projections in your feminine shadow. This all kind of falls under the mental point of origin in the red pill. But the red pill is kind of lacking here in my opinion because there's no anchor besides yourself. But I do think men need community for accountability. So join the locker room, link down below. We have a private group discussion each month. If you start going off the rails, it's helpful to have peers to help you get back on track. The red pill is not prescriptive. So if you want to lean full tilt toward the lever and start licking everything in sight, more power to you. Fill your boots, as Ryan Stone would say. But if you don't heed the warnings of the archetypal stories, you're open to archetypal possession.
I can't bear it. You ever seen a phosphorus grenade go off? Kind of bright. Shield your eyes. If you ever get out here, you find Lena. I will. Five, 4, 3, 2.
Jung understood that there's a lot of bastards running around in the collective unconscious that are not your friend. But once you learn to individuate and assimilate them, you become like Solomon and you can control them. You learn to be more balanced when you're triggered. You can call on the warrior when your boundaries are crossed. He'll help you get down to that 20% body fat. You'll be able to lean on the king when you need to give without reciprocity. You can count on the lover when you want to lose your fear when you approach that barista. And the priest will give you focus and inspiration when you need to get that report done. It's a nice and tidy way to keep your blind spots covered. And it keeps you from projecting onto somebody else where you lack. That's the reason why a lot of men abdicate their authority to other men. Next week, we're going to dig into the anima projection and we'll see a lot of harmony with the red pill. And until next time.